welcome to this tutorial today where I'm going to show you how to make a skin selector like Apex Legends or Fortnite. So you can set the material, change skeletal mesh, do whatever you wish within your character. So with that said, this is what it looks like. So we walk up here. This is a object that we walk up to, such as in your level. You can also just make this a menu in your main menu. So we press E for skins, and now we got this menu with a little demo character here. And we choose gold, and he turns gold. Now our character's gold. We turn red, our character's red, stock skin, back to stock. Okay? So with that said, let's get into this. So what I'm going to do is a different format here than I usually do. I'm going to have everything pre-made and then show you how I made it. And that way you don't have to follow along as connect nodes and everything, as that's not really important, but you'll see all the logic and you'll be able to copy the logic that I have on screen. Okay, so the first thing that I did was I have a widget. Okay, this is just the interact widget, it's just text. Okay. And that's the press E thing that comes up here, right there. Okay, and then I have the skin menu. Now this is just 3 buttons and text. That's all it is. Okay, and we'll get into how that works later. We have 2 materials here. These are just solid colors with the metallic. Now one thing to make sure is on the material, you choose skeletal mesh. Use with skeletal mesh. If this is not true, then it'll have like a world grid material on the mesh, so make sure that's true. Okay, by default it's off. Okay, so then we have an enumerator, which is called e-skin type. Okay, there's just stock skin, red and gold. If you don't know what an enumerator is, it's basically a way to change execution flow based on states, and you just assign names to them. That's basically all it is. This is just text if you don't know what it is. Don't worry about that. I'll show you in a second how an enumerator works. Okay, and then we have, I'm calling it the fake time nexus. That's something from my game, but you can call this BP skin selector, whatever you want. Okay, and then we have all this. Now I'm going to go through this one real quick. Okay, so the first thing we have is begin play. We need to enable input. That way when the player walks up, they can press E. If you don't have this, it won't work. Okay, then we have the game instance reference, and that way we're not having to cast the game instance every time we do this, only once on begin play, and then we just get a reference to it. That's more optimized. And then we have a timer, which triggers the demo skin. Now this demo skin is where the skin is selected. So we've got the enumerator here, which if I put this in a game instance, but you don't have to, it just works best if you do. Okay, and if you don't know what a game instance is, it basically holds variables between classes and levels. Okay, so you can watch a different video on how to set that up. I'm not going to go over this in this video. So we have the stock skin, which sets the material to male body, the red and gold, and so forth. Okay, so now that's called on a timer. However, now we need to set up the actor. Okay, so you set the timer right here, and you call it all the materials. Okay, and then we need to set the overlap for the text widget. Okay, so this is the interact widget that says press E for skin. And all we're doing is we're just saying is overlapping the player character. False, then remove the widget. And then on component begin overlap, which is over here, if it's true, if we're overlapping the player character, then we create the widget, we store it as a variable, and we add the viewport. Now that way we get the variable here. Okay? So the final thing we're doing is we're going to be doing this transition from the character's viewport to the skin selector, okay? And that way it's a smooth camera. Okay, so what we do there is we first need to go over the components, okay? So we have a cube, which is the floor, a cylinder, which is where they stand on, a camera for them to look at, and a widget component, which has receive hardware input to true, okay? This is our, I'll show you here, visible. If we set it to visible, as you see, it's the menu we're choosing. Now I'm going to turn this invisible as we don't want it when the game loads. The skin mesh is the skeletal mesh that we have. Okay, so that's just a skeletal mesh with an animation playing. And then we have the trigger to detect if the overlap event has happened for the player. Okay, so now with all those components being added, you can press E to overlap, and it checks if it's overlapping. True. Then we do a flip-flop node because we want it to do the press and enter it first, and then when we press the button again, it'll unenter the skin selector. Okay, so I'm using set view target with blend, with the player controller as the target and the self as the new view target. Okay, and this is activating the skin menu. Then what we do is we set visibility of the skin selector menu, which if you remember here, it's this right here. Okay, then we set that to be visible to true because we turned it off. We set the skin mesh to be visible. We show the mouse cursor so we can have the menu clicked. Then we hide the player character as hidden in the game. We set the input mode to game and UI. And then we disable movement for the character movement. And all of this is done using just the get player character. We don't want to cast to the character as we don't need to. We only need to get the inherited stuff. Okay? Then you set the visibility of the interact widget, which is the press E for skin, to hidden. Okay? And now on the flip-flop, when we want to disable the skin selector, we get the target, which is the player controller. Okay? Now that's what like activates and controls the set view target. And then the new view target is the player character. Okay, so the player controller is the target, player character is the new view target. And then we just basically do the opposite of what we did up here. Set visibility to be false for the widget and skin mesh, set show mouse cursor to be false, unhide the player character, set the input mode to game only, choose the input mode to be walking so it's not disabled anymore so they can walk around, and set visibility of the interacts press E to skin to true. Now with that, all it will do is we still have one more thing we have to do. All it will do is set it here, right? So if we exit out, the player will still have the base material. So what we need to do is we go to a third-person character, and I am doing this on event tick, but I recommend you do it on the timer, just because tick's very expensive. And we get the skin type, and we're basically just going to copy this code up here. Just copy this, okay, and paste it in here, and then only change the mesh variable. So get your mesh and drag it in as the target, okay? Because if you copy paste it, it'll be the skin mesh from the fake time nexus. You want to do the mesh, okay? And that is basically all you have to do for a skin selector. Okay, red skin, gold skin, stock skins. We'll do red skin, and now we have it. Gold skin, we have it, okay? And one thing to note is you can do this without this whole platform thing. You can just put this in a menu and just set the enums, and that'll work just as well. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button and the follow button. Thank you.